Hunt 'em Big with Steve Bartyilla. Brought to you by Bush Hog, Easton, Reconics, Heater Bodysuit, and by Wildlife Research Center.
Anyone who's watched hunting shows has seen this scenario play out 100,000 times already. Now, there's the hunter up in the tree. He grabs his sponsor's grunt call and his sponsor's rattling, antlers, rattling bag, whatever. Turns the camera. We're going to try to go ahead and call and rattle up some bucks. So he goes through the whole rattling, calling sequence. And all of a sudden, he turns to the camera. Here comes one. Now, hard cut to the deer. Hard cut means that it's not a pan. It's here's the hunter, here's the deer. So here in comes the deer. It's walking just like normal. Acting like it doesn't have a care in the world. Certainly not reacting like he's coming in to investigate a fight over a hot doe. Now, hard cut to the hunter. Close up on his sponsor's arrow. Close up on his sponsor's release. Close up on his sponsor's rest. Come to full draw. Have the logo of the bow and the shot. Back to the deer. Arrow hits the deer runs away. Sometimes you see it fall, sometimes you don't. The hunter goes ahead, looks back at the camera. That's the buck we've been after. We've been patterning this deer all fall long. Hey, we got it. High fives all around. Everybody's excited. Here's a dirty little secret. Well, first I can give you the dirty little secret that all those things that weren't pans, they were all shot after that deer was dead 9 times out of 10. Okay, it's cutaways that you do after the hunt. Okay, the other dirty little secret is, guess what? They almost never had that deer patterned. And they almost absolutely never have him patterned to the extent that they make it sound. As a matter of fact, when I first started consulting years and years and years ago, it was for outfitters. And a common practice was to go ahead and save the best little area. That area that 160 is coming out on a regular basis for the TV hunter. Now, there's plenty of outfitters out there that do not do this. I'm talking generalizations, but this happens a lot, people. I'm telling you. So they leave that alone because Mr. Joe Blow is coming in with Joe Blow's hunting, to film a show. That outfitter is not being paid by Mr. Joe Blow. As a matter of fact, he's giving up a hunt, he's giving up lodging, he's giving up his guide's salary, he's giving up food, all to try to get more hunters to come to this outfitting business. So if Mr. Joe Blow does not kill Mr. Big and Studley, you know what? All that was probably a waste. Okay, so he goes ahead and he sets that area aside. In comes Joe Blow Hunter. He shows him some pictures. This is the buck that's been coming out there. He's a good one. Go in and kill him. Mr. Joe Blow goes in there, climbs up the tree. Here he comes. He shoots it, and then he spends 15 minutes telling you how he patterned this deer. Baloney. 9 times out of 10, when experts are talking about patterning deer, they are doing it to try to convince you how smart they are. None of us on free-range deer know where that deer's bedding at all times, how he's traveling to the food sources that he's using at all times, where he's always going to water, what trails he's using every single time to check for does, all that baloney. To me, the definition of patterning a deer is simply having a glimpse into his life, figuring out one or more things that he tends to do. I get a bunch of pictures of him on this food source. Therefore, he tends to feed on this food source. That is, in my book, a pattern. Is it anywhere close to what they show on TV? Heck no, not even close. Because you know what? The picture that is so often painted by celebrity experts just is plain baloney. It is baloney. It is not true. It is done to make them look good and fill minutes on a show. Instead, what it amounts to is finding that little glimpse into his world, coming up with one or more things that he tends to do. And even on that food source, it's very rare that he's going to feed on this food source every single night. Most often, he'll feed there, But he might be feeding over here tonight. He might be feeding over there. He might be feeding on that cornfield, on the neighbors. They are not pre-programmed to do the exact same thing day after day after day after day. They do not bed in the same location every single time, day after day after day. They do not use the same trail day after day after day. They do not hit the exact same food source day after day after day. Instead, it's what they tend to do the most. And you do not have to put all these puzzle pieces together. All you have to do is figure out, how can I kill this deer? How can I take advantage of that little bit of information I know so I can go ahead and set up on him? Obviously, the more you know, the better, because it really helps to have a general idea where he's coming from. Because if you do, then you can make sure your odors are not blowing in that direction. You can make sure he cannot see you come to that stand, that he cannot hear you, because you've game planned how to get in around him. More information helps, but the idea that we know what these deer are doing at all times, or even close to all times, or even half the time, or heck, even a quarter of the day, is baloney. Find those little tendencies and take advantage of it.
Hunt 'em Big with Steve Bartyilla. Brought to you by Bush Hog, Easton, Reconics, Heater Bodysuit, and by Wildlife Research Center.
There is simply nothing that has been distorted beyond recognition to the point that patterning deer has been by quote-unquote experts. Why? Because most often all they're doing is climbing up a tree that the guide went ahead and set up for them. They're not really trying to scout or pattern these deer more often than not. There are exceptions. I'm talking generalizations here. Okay, what patterning a deer is to me is simply finding one or two tendencies, 3 tendencies, 4 tendencies that he tends to do. And now, how can I take advantage of that? By saying tendencies, by default, that means there will be exceptions. Mature bucks do not do the same thing every day. That is a fallacy. What we need to do is we need to figure out what they tend to do. And then we can use our greatest weapon, which is our mind, to go ahead and try to set up and kill him.